Good morning, Chair and board members. Being that we have no members of the public wishing to provide public comment today, we may proceed with our regular calendar. We'll start with a motion to adopt the minutes of our meeting on Wednesday, November 23rd.
Move.
Second.
All
Okay.
in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. We're going to proceed with the chair's report.
Great. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wonderful to see you. Some of us have been together over the course of the last several weeks at various ribbon cuttings, not even groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Just want to give a general update. As you know, this should be emblazoned in all of our minds, our strategic framework of our 10-year strategic plan, and want to give just a quick update on some important parts of that plan. Earlier this month, we completed a major renovation of what is the largest public housing development in the country. Actually, it's about $130 million in investments, both in the replacement of the roofs, which were original to this building, which opened up in 1950, I believe. We also replaced all of the lighting. There will be new doors, layered access, cameras, new play space equipment and grounds equipment. So just a really comprehensive rehab that has happened for this community in partnership with all levels of government. A big investment by the mayor with the roof money, the security enhancements provided through the Mayor's Neighborhood Action Plan. Also here is, and it'll be completed in the first quarter of next year, is another part of the mayor's effort to bring broadband to public housing. These buildings are actually being wired for broadband access. So a real investment in both the physical infrastructure, the safety improvements, as well as the overall connectivity, literal connectivity for residents to the internet. So it was a great day. It also happened to be just a gorgeous day, and really happy to see that work completed there 6 months ahead of schedule, I will say. Big shout to the capital planning department, who has done a really just fantastic job in managing a tight ship and getting that work done. So we're moving on to do a similar level of investment next. So just a great example of really leveraging numerous sorts of dollars, a tremendous partnership with all levels of government, as well as the resident leaders and associations and community groups out here. Urban Upbound is a major community partner in this neighborhood, and so a ton of work there in also connecting residents to permanent jobs as well. Again, sort of on the theme of connectivity and engaging with our residents, I guess this was just last week, it feels like it was longer ago, in what was his last visit as Secretary of HUD, Julian Castro visited. We were at the Betanzas Community Center in the South Bronx, announcing that T-Mobile has donated or will donate some 5,000 handhelds or laptop or tablets. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Lewis was there. Tablets to NYCHA residents that have a young person under the age of 19, that is one of the criteria, to receive these tablets that allow them to have access to the internet. And we will be working to identify additional developments that will and residents that will be eligible to participate in this program. We've set up it'll go live in the beginning of the year, a telephone number as well as a website to allow residents to sign up for what will be a first come, first serve for residents in the South Bronx. This was an area that the Secretary was specifically very committed to doing, and it's part of the National Connect Home Initiative, of which NYCHA was one of 23 cities that was selected to further connect residents to the internet. This is more than just, a great project, but it also now is actually issued a rule, a notification rule to all public housing authorities now requiring that anytime a public housing authority does any form of major rehab, the buildings must be wired for broadband. So it's no longer, a luxury; it's a necessity, and they're now requiring that to be the case. They will all. The second part of that rule is public housing authorities need to have a report or sort of an assessment of the number of and monitor and update that on a regular basis. So this is a real focus. This has been a real focus of the Obama administration and something that we had already been investing in with the mayor's support. And this is just one more piece to that overall commitment. The HUD has been quite busy in this last month. Another rule that was just finalized was the anti-smoking rule or ban on smoking in public housing. I think this comes from decades long of public health research that tells us the deadly impacts of secondhand smoke. This is not something that any of us, certainly I, do not contend with. We submitted comments, completely, embracing the spirit of the rule, highlighting our existing work already with the New York City Department of Health. In East Harlem, where we have 2 very successful smoking cessation programs already underway, and really wanting to use that as a model as we think about this for the rest of the portfolio. We had some concerns about the time and the enforcement mechanisms. I heard those and published the rule. And so we will, in the beginning of the year, begin to work with Department of Health to come up with an operational and implementation plan. We still believe the best enforcement is peer enforcement, and so we'll be thinking about what that looks like in terms of a public messaging campaign and other ways in which to support healthy living and healthy communities. Big news: President-elect Trump has nominated Dr. Carson as the HUD Secretary nominee. We immediately, when he accepted, we immediately released a statement, sort of underscoring our commitment to public housing and the preservation of public housing here in New York City, inviting him, if and when he is confirmed, to visit New York. We then followed up with a letter to him to confirmation that he is the mayor's suite to visit New York. So we presume, he is quite busy getting ready for his confirmation proceedings. But as soon as that sort of shakes out, that hopefully New York will be one of his first in the significance of that we're doing and its impact on HUD. The holiday season, great way to, I think, underscore our ongoing commitment to engage with residents and the broader philanthropic and corporate communities in new and different ways. We have a new partner with Whole Foods, which we're very excited about. They completely stepped up to help us serve residents who had, unfortunately, whose gas was not going to be on in time for Thanksgiving. We thought we had a plan for them in terms of meal delivery. That plan fell through, and within 48 hours, HUD, Whole Foods mobilized and donated, and actually added to what we had paid for a donation of some 500 meals that went to families. It was a huge team effort. See a little photo of us. There were NYCHA staff who we had to actually assemble the meals and then get them to people. So it was a whole effort. A lot of coordination on behalf of a lot of different parts of the organization. But I think a real illustration of what we do and how we do it when we all come together. So just I think a positive note to end the year on. And if there aren't any questions, or if there are questions, I'm happy to take them.
I have one question. So on the smoke-free or it says that will require most federally funded public housing to be for free. What's the exception there?
I don't know why it says that.
No,
I think it is all public housing
Yes.
authorities. Yeah. And at some point there had been some discussion about, those exemptions, those housing authorities that maybe had converted their entire portfolio and sort of what that means in terms of implementation. Maybe that's the word choice.
Yeah.
Okay, Jan.
Thank you, Chair. All right, good morning, board, good morning, public.
Good morning.
I'd like to share with you operational activities in the month of November, including some key performance indicators, as well as a report on our Section 3 on our resident hire. For the month of November, for work order overview, the agency is looking at 1,444,000 overall outstanding work orders. This represents about 207,607 work orders that were completed last month. Just to put things in a context of how much work we are actually doing here. It is at this point holding steady, despite the fact that we have an increase in overall inspection work that we're doing. On emergency work order responses, we're at 15.1 hours for the with a 24-hour target. This slide, I'd like to point out that a year ago we were at 18.3 hours as an overall average. During the month of October, November through the winter, obviously there's a very great uptick in calls for heat and hot water. The fact that we're tracking a little bit lower this year than last year, I think would like to contribute to definition summer overhaul work. And this is the overall meeting an uptick in November. This uptick coincides with our increased pre-VAS inspection work. So on top of the work that we currently put into our system based on response to residents' needs, remember we created 4,250 additional work orders on top of undergoing. So I think that's one of the things that's contributing to the uptick. That plus the fact that, again, heat and hot water recalls in November that we did for the spring and summer. On skilled trades, this is continues to be remarkable. I think it continues a downward trend. And I think one of the things to note in terms of attributing the downward trend, we created 114,990 skilled trade work orders in November of 2016 to 105,990. For a period of time, we closed 90,905 work orders compared to 72,375 work orders from a year ago. So we are actually getting more work in. We're receiving 9% more work in, and we're actually doing 26% more work out. That's starting to have an impact on the overall service levels that we're having. And again, even more, we're looking at things like painters, plumbers, and vendor workers, specifically the trades that are contributing to the downward skilled trade numbers.
You said it's 90,000 this year versus 75,000 last year?
Yeah, we closed 90,000 this year compared to 72,000 last year. In the month of November.
Would you happen to know what percentage of that is child tickets from the work tickets that are being closed as opposed to new tickets being put through?
No, I don't. Well, no, I think this generally it's about 75% new, 25% follow-up.
Okay. Thank you.
On the Department turnaround time, it shows a 51.8 days from the time the department becomes vacant to the time that we are able to lease in another resident. One thing to note here, though, that in the month of November, 18 developments that were privately managed by Kraus over the last couple of years had their own independent system for tracking their work. In November, they've incorporated we actually asked them to track their activities using our system. At transition period, we found that there were 13 developments that had really extended apartment completion times. So when we folded those into our overall numbers, it showed an increase. If without those, it had a 49.9. 99. So overall,
What are the reasons for them to have?
actually had 66 units had 200 days worth of turnaround time. They were like units that were fire damage units and heavily vandalized units that were on their books for an extended period of time. When we incorporated their records into ours, those extended times got folded into our overall.
So what are they doing? What are we doing to help bring them back online?
Oh, it's been
Those 200 units are now back online and
been
occupied?
Well, I don't know, Chair. I
Okay.
need to find out the specifics on this at this point.
Right.
But in terms of, it must be because they're closed, right? The fact that they actually showed them closed means that they're back online.
Okay.
Actually, that reminds me of a question related to your report. So the roof replacement, in many cases, we've heard the story about the apartments that can't be occupied because of larger infrastructure issues. Does that, at Queensbridge Houses, does that roof replacement, is it going to lead to previously unoccupiable come online? Is that, do we know that?
We can follow up specifically. I don't believe we had any lines of units offline at Queensbridge.
Right.
It's a pretty it's amazing. The construction is actually pretty good. So we actually didn't have large number of units offline at Queensbridge, but there have been other developments. Actually, one of which was in our Section 8 recap deal on East 120th, where there was a whole line of apartments offline. Those are now back online and revenue producing. Another one was Harlem River, where once we did the major cap there, we were able to bring on, I think, 2 floors of apartments that had been, previously vacant for so long because of significant damage. So there's a definite correlation between fix the roof, you can put the apartments back online, and then see the revenue come back.
So now that you've incorporated Kraus management to be able to tap into our systems, did they ever resolve the issue of if a resident has put in for a repair and they never got a tracking number or anything in order for them to follow up, and they had no follow-up? Are you saying now that Kraus has incorporated that into our systems to where a resident can call up and say, hey, Kraus, I put this in 3 months ago. No, with this, how come? No, so that's been included in the new system.
Part of the incorporation is that the Kraus's private managed activities parallel our activities and procedures,
So
as
we can
well
track
as the tracking.
Okay.
Customer satisfaction, a downward tick, 79.5 compared to 80.6. One of the interesting things is starting to look at this. We actually asked as a matter of robocalling and responses is, was the issue completely resolved? Was it done timely? Was the scheduled appointment met? Was there professionalism in the response? There's a lot of different things that get asked. This particular one, though, talks about how would you rate your level of satisfaction with the services provided by NYCHA employees who respond to your service requests? We could consistently still have a 20% gap that shows that kind of inconsistent with a lot of the other answers. They'll say, yeah, the work was done, but we're still not very happy with it. And so I think we're really looking to try to, I've said that to you before, board members, but that's something that we're trying to crack that nut, because on the quality assurance work that we do, we're finding that 95% of the work that the craftsmen and the maintenance folks are doing properly. So it's really like a perception issue that we're trying to tackle here as well. As it goes beyond just the technical issue of did we do the work, in a timely manner and professional.
Could I just add to that, Chair, because it is improving, but a lot of the work that some of these skilled tradesmen were doing, and the residents had to call back, include myself several times for it. Now this time because I've been having problems in my bathroom with the leakage. This time, this gentleman came in there and I was really just overwhelmed. He really did a fantastic job. But a lot of them, they'll come in, wrap up and leave. And then you have the same problem, say in a month or two. When they do it right, like we say, if you do it right the first time, you don't have to worry about coming back. So that has improved. And I think with the skilled tradesmen, if they continue to do the work that is required and necessary, so they don't have to keep not they themselves, but whoever they send back the next time, and you won't have to have this keep coming back to do the same work all over again.
Got it. But the chair asked that there be a year-end report on our resident hiring activities. Again, we still have another month for reporting data, but just wanted to share with you over highlights. Resident economic resident 2,600 resident placements, and more than half of these placements have been done through partner-based initiatives. And these partner-based initiatives include our training academy, the Jobs Plus program, as well as, and most importantly, sort of based on our zone partner model of how we connect opportunities with jobs through our partnerships. And that the new resources that were attracted include over $2 million for a Jobs Plus to expand to East New York, which you'll hear about later this morning, and additional funding for Job Training Academy, funding for food-based pathways, and funding for our technology programs. So we continue to have additional resources that are coming in to meet this very important need.
Question for you. So when you have a job placement, say for example with a NYCHA contractor, is that a permanent job or is that job only last for the period that the contract lasts for?
It really depends on the job. A lot of it, and I think a lot of the things we're finding is that, and it's a good lead into the Section 3 employment, we actually will have per board commitment a resident hire that now goes on to a construction company. And that hire now stays onto that company on past the opportunities that we provide for that vote. Section 3 really tracks specifically new hires. So it's interesting because we will not actually add that hire that was done a year ago will not count in these numbers.
Right.
But there is, we do actually promote, and we actually, because of job preparation, we put our residents in the best position for long-term success at those jobs.
I've noticed that while attending these board meetings, that it seems that the number of the Section 3 hires is growing. In other words, we're employing more people, that 2,600. Do you have a number that shows the difference in how many we had last year as opposed to how many we have this year?
No, but I think that's something that, again, for a year-end report, I think we had a 12-month thing, but I was going to actually look at a year-end report from December to December.
Okay.
Last year, we did about 3,200 in terms of all 12 months. So as the GM said, we still have December to count for. So it'll be interesting what the year-over-year comparison is. But even 2015 numbers had increased from 2014. So there's been a definite march upward in not only the Section 3, but also the overall job placement activity through our REIS efforts. And as you recall, it is a commitment that we called out specifically in NYCHA.
Specifically, 1,203 placements, of which 571 placements were with NYCHA contractors. Those are the ones board member that comes specifically from the work that you do here. So this number includes both our operating hires as well as our contract capital hires. The average wage rate is $33 an hour. And what we've done is to centralize our oversight. It's now focused on our procurement department. So the board, for the board activity that you approve, now gets funneled and monitored through our procurement department, which tracks the compliance, which is something that we're now keeping contractors' feet to the fire, the same way we would do with Davis Bacon and other kinds of things. The contractual commitment is now being monitored through procurement. And the resident placements across a range of positions, so it's not just hard skills, but also we're looking at back office and administrative opportunities for residents as well. So with that, Board, I would like to recognize Sadia Sherman, Executive Vice President for Community Engagement and Partnerships, and her team. And that, Board, completes the general manager's report.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, we may proceed now with our regular calendar. We'll start with item number 1.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
I'm Karen Caldwell, CFO of NYCHA. And I am presenting item number 1, which is seeking authorization to award the authority's excess workers' compensation insurance policy liability insurance to Safety National Casualty Corporation, commencing January 1, 2017, and continuing through December 31st, 2019, at a premium cost not to exceed $4,454,600. Require the authority to maintain workers' comp and employer liability insurance coverage as a condition of receiving federal funds. The authority has been a qualified self-insurer for workman's comp since 1995 and has self-funded a portion of related insurance throughout the services of a third-party claims administrator to assist with adjusting the authority's workman's comp claims. The authority purchases excess workers' compensation, including employer liability insurance, to limit its claim expenses as a self-insured. Current actuarial analysis, it has been consistently demonstrated that purchasing excess workers' compensation insurance is less expensive than fully self-insuring all of the authority's workers' compensation claims exposure. With that, I request authorization to award the excess workers' compensation insurance policy, including employer liability, to Safety National Casualty Corporation for a 3-year term with a not to exceed premium of $4,454,663. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move to item number 2. Item number 2 requests authorization for the approval of investment transactions that were performed by the authority's Treasury Department for the quarter ended September 30th, 2016. These transactions were performed in accordance with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Office of Public and Indian Housing Notice 2002-13. The report outlines the authority's cash and investment position and provides a brief overview of operational changes in cash, changes in investments, and provides current and historical rates of return on the authority's investment as a measure of investment performance. We close out the third quarter with a net portfolio decrease of $122,329,098 from the prior quarter. The executive summary portion of the report outlines the major categories of cash flow affecting the changes in investment during this quarter. We thus ended the quarter with an investment portfolio of $1,252,951,683, which excludes fiscal agent investments and other cash balances totaling $82,807,524. This is largely comprised of Sandy recovery funds. During the third quarter of 2016, the authority earned $1,893,135 in income representing an annual rate of return of 57 basis points, which exceeds the comparable benchmark 3-month Treasury bill rate of 28 basis points, as well as a 12-month Treasury bill rate of 50 basis points. And for the 12-month period, interest earned on investments totaled $9,156,775, representing an annual rate of return of 69 basis points, which exceeded the comparable 3-month Treasury bill rate of 15 basis points and a 12-month Treasury bill rate of 45 basis points. And thus, we recommend that the members of the board approve the authority's third quarter investment resolution report. I would also note that the reason for the decrease in cash is the payment of our water bill, which we pay in the third quarter to the city of $174 million. Any questions? With that, I'll move to item number 3. Item number 3 requests authorization to enter into an agreement with New York Green Bank, and it's a division of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, known as NYCHA, to obtain an unsecured credit facility of approximately $11 million. The term of the loan will be 12 months with cumulative draws totaling approximately $11 million, inclusive of interest and fees. On the drawn amounts will accrue at a rate not to exceed the prime rate plus 100 basis points, and undrawn amounts will accrue a rate of 50 basis points. There'll be a closing fee of 50 basis points, as well as legal fees, New York Green Bank at the closing of the loan. The total debt service and principal payments fees will be $909. And Energy City with 2 energy performance contracts with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This financing agreement will enable the authority to complete lighting installations that reduce the authority's energy demand up to 2 megawatts in the Brooklyn and Queens boroughs of New York. Installation and other associated work are completed and verified by May 2017. The authority expects to receive a subsidy grant from Con Edison in the amount of $8 million. And with order for this credit facility is anticipated to close one of the 3rd 2026 and one of the 4th 2017. Did you get this grant? It has to be done and verified.
Done and verified by May 17th.
Yes.
And we are process.
Well, we're going to get started.
We're gonna get started.
This money.
Right.
Sorry, I'm Teresa Kuchar with NYCHA Treasury. Work will begin on January 9th.
I have a larger picture question. So this all relates to the NYCHA sustainability agenda and reducing energy by 20%. How are we doing in that sort of larger goal?
Well, Lomi Jung, if it was here, she would. No, Deborah's here. Deborah Goddard.
On capital.
Yeah.
We are really just starting. I did ask the question.
Yeah.
And our first EPC is going to reduce at those sites between 12 and 15%. So it's a very effective model, but we're really just starting, so we don't have a lot of impact authority-wide yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, item number 4, request authorization to approve the authority's 5-year capital budget plan for calendar years 2017 through 2021. As part of the 5-year capital budget plan, a new process was implemented to provide consensus on planning for capital improvements. This resulted in the creation of 2 committees, a capital budget committee and a capital scoring committee. And the capital scoring committee reviewed all submissions and presented a recommendation to the capital budget committee, who then reviewed the recommendations and approved the overall plan. This process allowed for a shift in how capital funds were planned. There was an increase of funding allocation for major infrastructure projects, as well as a reduction in the amount of funding transferred to the operating budget. So under HUD rules, you can transfer money from capital to operating, so we reduced that. For 2017, the capital plan authorizes $4,294 million in funding from federal, and state government, as well as funding from disaster recovery, the Hurricane Sandy. The Federal Capital Fund is funding that supports major renovation and system upgrades at the authority's public housing developments. The city capital funding supports the city initiatives, which include security upgrades, lighting, grounds renovation, as well as renovation of roofs. And then the disaster recovery funding supports efforts specifically for the repair and the resiliency of the Hurricane Sandy affected developments. The district attorney funding for the security upgrades, closed circuit TV, and exterior lighting at 18 developments. And the remaining funds from various bond, state, and public housing development grants are residual allocations from prior awards to support brick and roof replacement, electrical work, and lighting and energy systems, respectively. So with that, I request resolution, approval of this resolution for the 5-year capital plan for the years 2017 through 2021 for consideration.
You mentioned a committee and the scoring methodology that was put together. And in the case of NYCHA, where we know there's enormous backlog of need, I wonder if you could give a summary of how you go about really prioritizing what needs to be done and what that methodology looks like.
Good morning. Yeah, we start with understanding that we got to do things in a logical sequence. So it's building exteriors, right? A lot of those, a lot of roofs. We look at mold tickets, we look at work order tickets and try and get a sense of which are in the worst repair on top of our physical needs assessment, which is done every 5 years. On an annual basis, we look at these ops data to confirm if we're going into the right direction. And then we will do building infrastructure, boilers, electrical, then we'll get into the interior of apartments. But as between competing needs, it seems very much the same. It's a lot of data. Physical needs assessment, work order tickets, skill trade tickets.
And generally, if the site has more of,
Yes.
they get the priority.
Yes.
Right?
And we will be refining that over the coming year in terms of really trying to show causality between some of these tickets and the work we're doing. So we're still working to refine it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So what I was going to say is that bonds outstanding required to take a portion of the capital funds and to pay our bond obligations. So that sort of comes off the top. And then we receive submissions from operating, IT, and capital for the most part. A few other departments, but and so what we did is we went through and we sort of scored the need. We tried to fund, as we said, as much operating things as we could out of the operating budget to be able to leave as much as we could. And then with that, the capital dollars were then allocated based off of what Deborah just explained.
I would just note that this, I think, really with Karen's leadership and now with Deborah overseeing capital, it's a real shift in really prioritizing every single capital dollar to go towards capital. And I think and we got a long way to go, but I think, better data driving investments in operations so that we are ultimately reducing capital needs is the direction that we want to go. And as I've spoken on the capital side from the federal government, don't quite know what the future of that looks like. So, it's imperative that, every single dollar actually go towards a brick or roof, a boiler or pipe. And that when we get these other dollars, whether it's from the city or the state, I also would argue it should be going towards those things, but we have to try and leverage as much as that's possible. That's why I think Queensbridge is such an interesting example of, 3 or 4 different sources of funding going to fund a series of capital needs.
Could I just say, I noticed that with this, you're talking about capital, federal, state, city, and private. So has it made stopped?
So with mixed finance, we do 2 things. So we have mixed finance. Some of those units have been federalized and receive public housing subsidy. And take portion to those mixed in a separate reserve for them. And then those mixed finance units have been taken over by our next generation. You basically have the controls units. The other units you have the ones that are public as far as housing. You have to.
And what's the annual draft budget?
It's $25 million a year that it costs us. And you know, that was 20,000 unfunded. You know, it has been successful over this period of time and sort of driving that down. Imagine. Item number 5 requests authorization to approve the authority's 5-year operating budget plan for calendar years 2017 through 2021. In fiscal year 2016, in an effort to improve the use of limited resources, finance conducted an in-depth of the authority's organizational structure and led a functional review of with the objections to the result. Line 17, this plan includes a total spending of $3 in the operating $1 million and a total headcount of 11,107 being approved. This plan includes the general fund funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which supports the authority's public housing program and administration. Major changes to the plan include streamlined supervision and realigned positions, updated payroll budget reflective of settlement of labor contracts, and reduced utility expenses based on current trends. Estimated 2017 general fund surplus of $1.2 million, general fund deficits projected for 2019 through 21 will be funded from the authority's operating reserves. The Housing Choice Voucher Program Fund supports the Section 8 leased housing program. Federal funding and reserves are maintained for the Housing Assistance Payments, or HAP, and for administrative costs. The estimated 2017 deficit for the Housing Choice Voucher Program is zero, as the HC Housing Choice Voucher Program HAP or administrative deficits are funded from the designated reserves maintained in accordance with HUD. And then the categorical grant funds support various community development programs funded from federal and city sources for 2017. This fund includes a $31.8 million provided by the city for community and senior centers, combating homelessness, and like programs. The programs in this fund are not expected to contribute to the authority's deficit. All funds represent the consolidation of the general fund, the housing choice, and the categorical grant funds with appropriate interfund eliminations. We expect in 2017 for the authority to be positive by $21.182 million. For 2018, we expect that to be $61 million. For 2019, a negative $19,617,000. For 2020, a negative $27,325,000. And for 2021, a negative $56,764,000. Out that as we budget the things that we know today. And I think that we certainly have an opportunity over the next couple of years to continue to work on our unfunded units, to continue to manage our operations and hopefully improve what we can foresee in the out years. And so with that, I request approval of the authority's 5-year operating plan for calendar years 2017 through 2021. Yes.
I have a question that I think might tie the capital budget to operating budget, but I'm not sure. So, so there's these funds that we have invested, that some of which are based on the bond proceeds that we got from the 2013 bond issuance. And my understanding of that money is that it's being spent as capital projects are getting mobilized.
Right.
As we continue to spend that down, and I guess the first question is, do we know when we'll sort of fully, those projects will be complete, or when we'll fully spend down that amount? And then also, we're earning interest on that money, and is that interest helping with operating funds? Where's the interest that's earned on the money that's in the bank, on our investment portfolio? Where's that going?
Okay, so just a couple, you come up. There's just a couple things.
Yeah.
One is we borrowed in 2013 about $700 million
Yeah.
in bond proceeds. And it was Bond A, and then Bond B was split into a couple of tranches.
Right.
Bond A was actually utilized to pay off a 2005, actually to defease a 2005 bond. And then the rest of the proceeds were used for capital projects.
Right.
And those capital projects had to be expended over a period of time. It is my understanding that there's a small amount left to be expended, and that it's going to be expended in front of the date that it has to be expended by a few months. So with that, go ahead, Teresa.
What is that date that it has to be expended?
So just to give a little, I'm Teresa Puccio, NYCHA Treasurer. Just to give a little color to what Karen just said, there's about $30 million that remain. These funds are held in escrow by the trustee, and these remaining proceeds need to be spent by July 17, 2017. We have our roadmap of how every dollar will be spent, and the remaining work will be performed probably by February of this coming year. Funds are that are held in retention or planned to be released, and the remaining work, everything will be spent before the deadline.
Right.
Right.
And then just the final question is, so the interest that we've been earning on that, is that leading to a deficit anywhere, or?
The interest for the funds that were held in escrow, it comes back to NYCHA for the work, in
Goes
this
back
bond
into
program.
capital. Right. Okay. Thank you.
And just to, the other thing I was going to say, most of the money that we have invested at NYCHA is for our self-insurance reserve. So that's the bulk of our investment portfolio.
Yeah.
When you say unfunded, you recall that there were 21 units or 21 developments that were federalized.
Right.
And then of those 21 units, there are still 8, the LLC 2, if I'm not mistaken, that aren't funded. Is this a different money pool, or is this part of that as well,
So the
to
bond,
fund those 8 developments?
so we talked about a number of things. So we talked about the investment portfolio, and that's, as I said, mostly for our insurance reserve. We talked about the bond proceeds, Bond A and Bond B, which was really to bring forward some capital work that needed to be done. So neither of those things affect the LLC. But on the LLC 2, of those developments that are in LLC 2, some of those developments have been converted to Section 8. And what remains, and they're dispersed, I believe, throughout the building, so I don't know exactly. They're dispersed throughout the buildings. There are 4,300 units, which were never converted to Section 8. And so those are the ones, that we talk about sort of having the $25 million drag on our operating.
Okay. So in the interest of time, we'll discuss this further another time. Thanks.
Okay, if there are no questions, thank you very much.
Can I just note that this was Karen's inaugural capital and operating budget as NYCHA's chief financial officer, and she both, I think, with our team, created a process. We made some strategic decisions and investments that, I think it'd be great. We should share the slide that shows what our bottom line looks like with and without next gen initiatives. And so the next 2 years plotting to be positive. And then, we start to see more red. And so I think, with leadership is really do some
Wanted to thank you for sending, we were doing the questions in the Q&A meeting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Clark, Senior Vice President of Operations for Property Management. I'll be presenting items 6 through 11 this morning. Just wanted to start off, just have a quick answer for Board Member Gonzalez regarding the question surrounding Kraus Management. So now that they're on Maximo, yes, they will provide the Maximo work order number for any residents that call in for a service request.
Thank you.
So item 6 is a requirement contract. It's a 1-year requirement contract for a refrigerator. It's 11.6 cubic feet refrigerator. We use these refrigerators in occupied apartments when we have to replace it, or during vacancy preparation for occupancy. The authorization is requested to award this contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Star Creations. The first lowest bidder, Crystal Touch of NY Inc., was deemed non-responsive because the product offered did not conform with the bid specifications. The requirement contract also provides for a 1-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. Any questions?
This is regarding a previous contract that you had for stoves. I need to talk to you offline regarding that issue.
Okay. Okay. Items 7 through 11 are all similar, so I'll provide a broad overview, and then I'll go into the specifics of each contract. So these contracts are also requirement contracts to be used as needed for bulk carting services. This is not for household waste, normal protrusible, organic waste, but for large furniture type items that typically we'll remove as part of a vacancy preparation, things that are left behind, and also large items that residents put out. The vendors in this case, they provide us with the use of a 30-yard open container, and they will also, based upon request, transport the open container to the transfer station. The disposal fee for the materials is covered by the Department of Sanitation, by the city, using a voucher which we call a dump ticket. We are requesting to use the 50% option to increase the contract threshold in order to carry us over until we award new contracts. Procurement department had tried a different strategy in bidding out contracts, wanted to put out smaller contracts to encourage more vendors for bidding. But unfortunately, the costs came back very high for those smaller contracts. So they rebid it based on the larger groupings. Typically, we group these contracts. We break the city up into 8 different areas. So these contracts cover 5 of those areas. And this will, once approved, will carry us over until the new contracts are in place, which we anticipate to be during the first and second quarter of next year. Okay. So any questions regarding bulk carting contracts or anything along those lines? No? All right. So item 7, authorization is requested to approve an increase in the not to exceed amount of this contract with Sanitation Salvage Corp. For bulk garbage carting services by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contract, which did not require initial board approval for initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the 1-year renewal option, which commenced on December 8th, 2016, and is continuing through December 7th, 2017. Item 8, authorization is requested to approve an increase in the not to exceed amount of this requirement contract with ISI NY Corporation for bulk garbage carting services by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contract, authorized by the board, Resolution 14-11/26-6 for an initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option in order to fund the continued provisions of services during the remainder of the initial 2-year term, which commenced on March 3rd, 2015, and is continuing through March 2nd, 2017. Okay, item 9, authorization is requested to approve an increase in the not to exceed amount of this contract contract with ISI NY Corporation for bulk garbage carting services by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contract, which did not require initial board approval for initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the 1-year renewal option, which commenced on June 19th, 2016, and is continuing through June 18th, 2017. Authorization, item 10, authorization is requested to approve an increase in the not to exceed amount of this requirement contract with ISI NY Corporation for bulk garbage carting services by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contract, which did not require initial board approval for initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the 1-year renewal option, which commenced on June 19th, 2016, and is continuing through June 18th, 2017. Okay, and finally, item 11, authorization is requested to approve an increase in the not to exceed amount of this requirement contract with ISI NY Corporation for bulk garbage carting services by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contract, which did not require initial board approval for initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the 1-year renewal option, which commenced on August 14, 2016, and is continuing through August 13, 2017. Thank you.
Good morning. Cynthia Sherman, Executive Vice President for Community Engagement and Partnerships. I'm presenting item number 12. Item number 12 requests authorization to enter into agreement with the New York City Human Resources Administration in the amount of $1,566,080 to support implementation and management of the Jobs Plus Initiative Program commencing January 2nd, 2017 through September 27, 2020. In September, NYCHA was awarded a $2 million federal Jobs Plus pilot initiative grant by HUD to launch the Jobs Plus program at Penn Wortman Houses in East New York. Over the past 7 years, NYCHA has successfully implemented the Jobs Plus program across 9 sites through a collaborative interagency model that includes HRA, the Mayor Center for Economic Opportunity, and the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs. NYCHA seeks to use these grant funds to launch its 10th Jobs Plus site in East New York through the same collaborative model. Pursuant to the agreement, HRA will competitively select a qualified vendor, they will administer a performance-based contract, and they will provide in-kind support to the program. Questions?
Could you just restate your name for me, please?
Sure, it's Cynthia Sherman.
Hi, City. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Jobs Plus and what it entails and some of the successes you mentioned?
Sure. So Jobs Plus is an evidence-based employment model. It's designed specifically to serve public housing residents. So the model serves one or a cluster of public housing developments and saturates the developments with not only workforce services, but also financial literacy, educational services. And so in addition to job placement outcomes, there are outcomes in the areas of completing degrees or having industry-based credentials and achieving other outcomes. And so this is a model that was piloted in the late 90s and was proven to be successful. So even after the sites closed, the residents continued to increase their earnings. And so NYCHA launched its first site in New York in 2009, and we've grown it to now 10 sites. We've had about 4,400 placements in the last 3 years through Jobs Plus with the 8 sites that are sponsored by the city. We have a 9th site that's privately funded, and then this new site, which will be federally funded.
How many residents do we hope to serve through this grant?
So the outcomes are specific to the development. So within Penn Wortman, there are around 356 residents who are what it's working age, 18 to 61. The placement goals that were set by HUD were at least 140 placements. So out of that 356, 170 were not reporting work.
Say that again.
So there are 356 working age residents.
Yes.
About 170 of those working age residents are not reporting work.
Okay.
So the job placement goals that are set through the grant are about 140 placements. And so that accounts for moving people who are unemployed to work, but also moving people who are working to advancement.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
What about the surrounding developments? Can they, say it's a cluster of housing developments, could they come over to Penn Wortman and utilize the services there if they're a NYCHA resident?
Sure. So Jobs Plus is an exclusive model, so it's designed to specifically serve one or a Plus, we've been New York Times, we've created a 10% contract to serve the surrounding community. So if any store, they're not turned away, they're connected to another resource, and nearby developments will sometimes partake in the service. Once the contracts have reached the 4 to 6 year mark, so some of our contracts in East Harlem and the Bronx are at that point, we've now expanded those clusters to formally include nearby developments because the initial developments are saturated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Deborah Goddard, VP for Capital. I'm also going to take a second to give a more fulsome answer on energy. Both my staff member left, you won't hear me giving him credit. We're doing a lot of groundwork, I want to add to what we're doing. So we have an EPC that we hope will close. I jinx it, it will close by year end. We have 3 more that we expect to close in 2017. We've been benchmarking utility usage, so there's been a lot of groundwork, and I think we'll start to see a swing up in payback. I am here first on items 13 and 14. Both are the recommendation to reject bids. Item 13 is a requirement contract for gas piping replacement at various developments. The sole bidder, Crescent Contracting Corporation, came in with a bid which we think is too high. The work is quite straightforward. The materials are straightforward, and we didn't think there was any justification for such a high bid. We request your approval to reject that bid. Second, item 14 is a requirement contract for replacement of roof water tanks at various developments in Manhattan. The 2 lowest bidders, American Pipe and Tank Lining and Rosenwalk, both of whom are the folks that really know how to do this work, failed to submit a bid bond. So they were deemed non-responsive. The 3rd lowest bidder is Neelam Construction Corporation, again with a high bid factor, owing probably to the fact that this is not the type of work they generally do, and they would have to sub out a lot of the work. So we were recommending that we reject this bid. We are ready to go out. We've packaged it to go out again. Upon approval of this rejection, we'll move back to procurement. The next 2 are items 15 and 16 are ratifications of change orders. They both relate to the fact that we have changed our specs for boilers from single fuel boilers, gas, to dual fuel boilers, gas and oil, so that we can prevent disruption in the case of gas outages. So the first, item 15, is a change order to Freeman Mechanical contract in the amount of $97,250. In addition to a prior change order, this brings it over the 10% total change orders and requires your approval. At this point, this change order relates to inspections and additional requirements by the Department of Buildings and then Con Ed. Con Ed was out in late August, and the work would have taken 8 weeks. We gave the contractor to go ahead to do the work ahead of your action so that we wouldn't have any delay in entering into the heating season. Item 16, again, another ratification of a change order. This case related to a contract with Marek Plumbing and Heating for $175,060. Again, we had changed the nature of the specs, and that caused the temporary boilers to have to be in place for a longer period of time, and we're requesting your ratification of the change order for the extended duration of the change orders, temporary boilers.
I just asked a question in terms of we switched, or question, have we switched over in general from just the dual oil boilers to now oil and gas? I thought, had we not done that already?
I don't know when it happened,
Okay.
Chair,
So
but it is now a standard spec.
now it's standard specs, yes. So does that mean have other contracts that are currently live that are not consistent with this new change in specs, such that we might see more change orders?
I would have to check that.
Okay.
I can check that.
Because I think it would be, if we made, and someone from Capital should do that history, like, if we made this change 2 years ago and we've still been doing contracts with the old specs, that would not be good. But I don't think what's the total percentage of change orders we would expect to see. Thank you.
I just had one question, but this appears to be retroactive.
Yes.
This one, so this means the new boilers are in place.
Yes.
Right.
The job is closed down now.
Yeah.
Item 18 is the recommendation to award a requirement contract for gas piping replacement at various developments in Manhattan to Richards Plumbing and Heating Company in the amount of $13,210,902.82. We have good experience with Richards as a prime at 4 projects. They've been in business since '64. and they are proposing 3 Section 3 hires in connection with this contract. Any questions? Okay.
Just add one,
yeah,
so
sure.
do we basically replace roof tanks when they leak? Is that sort of that's how when you know when they're,
Or inspection says they're about to. Yeah. Item 19. This relates to an increase, the second increase to the contract, construction management as agent service agreements related to Hurricane Sandy work. The original contract was for the amount of $75 million. Your first increase that you approved was for $15 million when we had a better sense of the temporary work and pre-construction work that was going to go on. We are now far enough along, having in both the preliminary work and having designed the final work, that we think we have a good sense of the total scope of construction. We think that this request for an additional $30 million of authority for all, in total, 14 contracts, will be the last amendment that we need on this set of contracts.
was 18 taken out? Did you go over 18?
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
She spoke on 18. That was
Oh, you know what?
Richard's.
I missed the I missed the water tank.
No,
That's
from
why I did
water
water
tank.
tank.
We
Water
think this
tank.
is- Oh, you were,
Yeah, I will go back. I will go back to that.
It was
Sorry,
17.
Item 17.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Item 19 on the increase. Are there questions about the CM contract with Sandy? Okay, I'm going to go back. I apologize. Item 17. The roof replacement of roof water tanks at various developments. This is to Rosenwalk Tank Company in an amount of $23,609,341.76. Rosenwalk, in fact, is one of the 2 firms in the New York area that addresses our old wooden water tanks. Okay, I did 18, which was the gas piping. I'm now going to turn to item 20, the award of a contract for restoration at Redford. We are recommending that the contract be awarded to Nautilus Tile Inc., doing business as Nautilus Contracting, in the amount of $92,287,000. This is for the comprehensive redevelopment of Redfern, new boilers, electrical work, flood mitigation, daycare center, apartment interiors. We've had, Nautilus has performed 7 projects as a prime contractor to NYCHA. We are awaiting approval of their vendor, so this vote is conditional upon that approval. And they are proposing 25 Section 3 hires. Any questions? Thank you.
Let's see, wait, that was.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow here.
No problem. I was talking fast.
No, so so there's quite a variance with the bid, the estimate and the bid.
Yes.
And I noticed that in a number of the contracts this time around, and it sometimes happens. I guess it may be a policy question, I'm not sure, but what's the value of of estimates when they're often off?
Yeah.
And does it warrant a change in methodology, or is this just the nature of the beast? How do you think of that?
We do think there were mistakes made and about where they made mistakes. So we do think that was more of a one-off. The others, you'll see some have come in lower and some coming in higher. We're having a difficult time. Labor costs are really moving up quickly. We participate in the interagency engineering committee, and across these are seeing estimates coming in between 20 and 30% higher. So we are in, we look at what we've done in the past. That's not necessarily a great guide anymore. We're paying attention to labor costs, but we're having trouble as our sister agencies in keeping up with the cost escalation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Carrie Jew, the Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer, and this morning I'm going to present Board Resolution Number 21, which seeks to amend the Memorandum of Understanding with the City University of New York for student customer information representatives to work in our Customer Contact Center. The current MOU with CUNY provides qualified students to work part-time as student customer information representatives at the authority's CCC. Implement existing authority staff who receive and respond to residents' calls. CUNY students working under this agreement must meet certain criteria, including status as a current student in good standing at a City University of New York college, availability to work 4 shifts of 4 hours per week, strong computer and internet skills, excellent phone etiquette and communication skills, proficiency in English with bilingual Spanish as a plus. By way of background, the authority entered into an MOU with CUNY on December 1st, 2013 for an initial term of 13 months with 4 one-year renewal options to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. The original MOU outlined a not to exceed amount of $713,272 and did not require board approval. 21st, 2014, the authority exercised its first one-year renewal option to extend the term through December 31st, 2015, and the board authorized increasing the not-to-exceed amount by $820,592 for a total not-to-exceed amount of $1,533,864. On December 23rd, 2015, the authority exercised its second one-year renewal option, and the board authorized an increase in the not-to-exceed amount by $896,206 for a total not-to-exceed amount of $2,430,070. Today, I'm requesting authorization to amend the MOU with CUNY to again increase the not-to-exceed amount, this time by $1,408,735 for a total not to exceed $1,838,805 in order to fund the third one-year renewal option as well as 6 months of the fourth one-year renewal option for a total of 18 months of continued service to commence on January 1st, 2017 and run through June 30th, 2018. We are doing this for 18 months, or we're requesting to do this for 18 months in order to coincide with the city's fiscal year, which will end on June 30th, 2017. We've seen great success with this agreement over the past 3 years. Operationally, the addition of CUNY employees has allowed the call center to more flexibly staff additional agents in smaller increments of time based on changing call patterns, and this has helped us improve service levels and answer speed. CUNY students also provide NYCHA with substantial cost savings versus traditional temporary staff. The cost for CUNY students is approximately $16.65 per hour in 2017 versus the approximate price of $22 per hour for traditional temporary staff. Overall, we found that the project has had a positive effect on the call center and has offered participating students a unique opportunity to gain insight and work experience at the authority's call center, which we hope will lead to full-time employment at NYCHA. Therefore, I'm requesting your approval to fund the continued provision of services with CUNY for the third one-year renewal option, as well as 6 months of the fourth one-year renewal option for a total of $3,838,805. Any questions? Yes.
Yes, regarding the prior conversation that we had with regards to something that was before your time here, the push for residents to be hired at the CCC, merely because they would know better how to phrase the questions to the residents that are calling in with issues at their prospective developments. And so I was wondering whatever happened to that push with getting more residents to working at the CCC, which will then also improve the already successes that you've had with these students.
So as we had discussed earlier, the customer information representatives are a civil service title for which they have to take an exam in order to gain permanent employment. So we are working with, and we have continuously worked with Sadia Sherman's team on identifying residents who could potentially fill the positions when there is no active civil service list. And then when we know that an exam is coming up, we would be able to refer those employees to training providers to help them prepare for the exam. But ultimately, for them to be able to be hired permanently off the active civil service list, they would have to take the exam and then be called off of the list in number order based on performance.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is, and we should check these numbers, but there's a good portion of CUNY students who are NYCHA residents. Something like a third of those students, of the, I don't know how many millions of kids go there, actually live in NYCHA. So I don't know what the numbers are here, sorry. I don't know what the numbers are here in terms of the call center, but that's just an interesting sort of connection of these two big public institutions here in the city. So, you know, they're oftentimes younger people. We just, you know, earlier this year, we just sort of endowed a CUNY scholarship for NYCHA young people who live within NYCHA who are also CUNY students. And so, you know, we had, you know, hundreds of applications. So there's a fairly robust connection already in existence without any direct push on our part.
Okay.
That was a very helpful summary and helped lay out some of the benefits. And so how does this, so we contract with CUNY and they do the vetting of the students, and
Correct.
Is that the value add that as opposed to, you know, CUNY's residents coming, or CUNY students coming directly to NYCHA? That's the
Correct.
Sort of it's an administrative role and function.
Correct. They do the initial vetting based on the criteria that we provide
Right.
to them, and then they send us who they've, you know, already vetted, and then
Right.
we
So-
do our own vetting after that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Chair, 21 items were presented for board approval. Do I have a motion to approve the 21 items?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I want to wish everyone a very happy and healthy holiday season. Be safe and think about those in our community who need a little bit more attention. I want to encourage those NYCHA employees, if you see a holiday box outside your door, to help donate some toys. And thank you for the work that each of you all do to help make our community safer and cleaner. Thank you very much. See you in 2017.